Welcome to Dialogues from the President's Corner. I'm your host, Rosemary Williams, along with Dr. Lawrence Czarda, president of Greensboro College. You know, we've all been devastated by the destruction to Western North Carolina done by Hurricane Helene. Many of our mountain communities are forever changed. And worse, families are dealing with the loss of loved ones, homes, and livelihood. Greensboro College, like most North Carolina institutions, has impacted students who attend here, and certainly many families who are more so. Dr. Hope Williams is president of North Carolina Independent Colleges and Universities. She is here with us today to talk more about what she's seen, heard, the relief effort, and how we can all be a part of helping. Hello and welcome.
Hi, thank you.
We are so glad you are here. Let's start with you talking about Western North Carolina. I know that you have been really in daily contact with our schools in Western North Carolina in these 3 weeks or so. What can you tell us about the state of recovery and how those schools are doing?
Well, the first thing I would say is that the resilience and the warmth and compassion and generosity of our North Carolina residents and our foundations, faculty, staff, and students, all of that has just been amazing. We have faculty, staff, and students whose families have lost everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's devastating in ways that it's very difficult to imagine if you're not there. But everyone is coming together. The state emergency management folks, FEMA, foundations, charitable groups, the Air National Guard, all have been terrific in bringing resources into our campuses in ways that I think help emphasize, too, the amount of support there is in our town-gown relationships. Because while the level of devastation varied by campus, and we had 7 campuses that were most affected, Gardner-Webb and Lenoir-Rhyne missed 1 day of classes. Brevard and Mars Hill had less devastation on campus, but a lot of students in those areas and families and faculty and staff very much affected. And then Lise-McRae, Montreat, and Warren Wilson lost water and sewer because their towns did. And so fortunately, the town of Montreat's water has been restored. Asheville's restoration of its system has gotten to Warren Wilson. And Banner Elk is working hard to make that happen for the town and its residents, certainly, and also for Lise-McRae. So it has been a journey that is far from over. But I have to say that one thing that even these faculty and staff who have lost everything are making sure that our students get through the semester successfully and stay on track. And I think that's critical to keep in the front of our view in the midst of all of this, because I think, especially when you've had that kind of personal loss, the fact that you still have students as your priority and you're making sure that they're going to be successful regardless is just an amazing story to tell.
We know some of these schools, of course, moved online, had to figure out, again, just like we did with COVID, figure out a new way, how to keep going, how to make sure these students were still moving towards graduation and their goals and their dreams. Where does that stand for each of the schools? Who's back on campus and who is still remote?
Right. Well, as I mentioned, Gardner-Webb and Lenoir-Rhyne lost only 1 day, right? And Brevard and Mars Hill are back in full classes. Montreat just started back, and then Warren Wilson will be starting back on the 28th. The goal is for Lise-McRae to start back on November 4th. They're still working on that sewer and water system.
Right.
So idea of November 4th as close as we can and hoping that that's going to work out. It is thinking about water and sewer and reconfiguring all of that when it's been washed away in the mountains is something that I think most people don't stop to think about how much harder that is and compared to the rest of the part of the state.
And we've seen as they get it turned back on in certain places, they find problems other places too. So it's really a difficult job for our city and county workers to make that happen.
And so we're so pleased, though, that Montreat and Warren Wilson now have all the way to drinking water approved.
Oh, that's great.
So that's all good. And Lise-McRae is next.
That's great. Great to hear. Dr. Czarda, Dr. Williams is talking about the families impacted, and that is really the key of all of this. I mean, so many families deeply and forever impacted by this storm. What do we know about Greensboro College students who were impacted?
Yeah, Rosemary, what we've been doing is using primarily zip code information. We've been in contact with all the families that we believe have their daughters and sons here at Greensboro College and are in dialogue with them as far as what do they need. And it ranges from, in some cases, relatively little, some sympathy, some empathy, and maybe
Mhm.
making sure counseling is available and so on, to in other cases, devastating. One example that came to my attention last week, a young woman that we have here who's a sophomore. Both parents are working, a middle class family, but the parents do not know when they will be able to go back to work, if at
Mm.
all, and their home is unlivable. And so we're working with that individual student to say, what can we do for the rest of the semester? What can we do with financial aid for next semester? And so on. We also have faculty and staff and alumni who are also directly affected, whether it be that they have relatives who, are some of the hardest hit places, whether it be that perhaps they have to take some time off to go try to see if they can help get things back on track.
Mhm.
I have even people in my own office who were very directly impacted. In addition, whether it's pretty constant postings on our social media about how you can help,
Mhm.
or just some examples on campus where about 2 weeks ago now, the Brevard Women's College volleyball team was playing here at Greensboro.
Mhm.
And within a 24-hour period, the team, the athletic department, was able to get enough supplies together to basically pack the team bus with supplies to take back to Brevard.
Mhm.
And even if not for the college necessarily, at least for the town, if
Mhm. The
not the college
community.
itself. Sometime this week, we have a blood drive on campus,
Mhm.
and it's specifically targeted to send blood supplies to where it's hardest hit near Asheville and Boone. Part of what we're really trying to emphasize, though, is don't look away.
Mm.
This is going to take a very long time to recover from.
Yeah, Dr. Williams, I mentioned some of the things he's saying resonate. You must be hearing this from schools all over North Carolina. I mean, on the east coast of North Carolina, all the way to the mountains.
Everyone, all of our colleges have offered their support in every way. We have teams that have been offered to go to our campuses that need that help. We are actually have started a fund because everyone has been asking how they can help. And so at ncicu.org, there is a hurricane recovery fund for Hurricane Helene. And so far, we have about $250,000 that we have collected and certainly are welcoming that kind of support. We do get asked a lot what is needed. And quite frankly, it varies so much that that kind of funding is really critical. And it was wonderful that on Friday, our president at Chowan University, Rosemary Thomas, was inaugurated and presented me with a check for $25,000. She's the 24th president of Chowan and the first woman. So $25,000 from an anonymous donor to help our Western campuses. And I think that really speaks to the closeness and compassion and care that all of our independent colleges and universities have for each other. Regardless of geographic location, regardless of history or type of institution, everyone cares. And so many of the gifts that have come in so far are coming from faculty and staff from other institutions because they want to do something to help.
And how will this money be used?
This money will be going directly to those campuses. So we will be sending that, and we've had some foundation support, individual support, and the support is still coming in, and certainly the gift on Friday. And so that money is coming into our office, and we're sending that directly to our campuses that have been affected.
Dr. Williams, you were talking about the federal response, the state response, but there's so much work that's going to have to be done on an ongoing basis. I mean, weeks, months, years in many cases to get these communities and these schools back to where they were. What is the state doing, or what are you hoping and asking for the General Assembly to help these schools? How are you helping?
We have asked the General Assembly for support in two ways. One is that we know that our students from these areas whose homes and possibly their jobs that their parents have may be gone or at least delayed in terms of coming back. So they are not going to be able to pay the rest of their tuition that is due this semester. And we want to be able to make sure that these students can stay in college, especially for those who've lost their homes. Being in a residence hall on a college campus is a wonderful place for them to be with safe and secure and food in the dining halls and all of that. So we're asking for support for financial aid for those students who've been affected and to be able to work with our financial aid directors who can change under the federal and state requirements when there is a life-changing event such as this. They can come in and have essentially emergency support. So we're asking for support for that. And then we are also asking the General Assembly to provide the kind of support it provided during COVID for institutions. And that was an incredible amount of support that the state provided then, which enabled our colleges and universities to stay strong and to reopen when there are many private colleges and universities across this country that are not open now and have closed either during or since COVID. So we want to keep these colleges and universities strong. We want to keep our students on the path to success. We want to help meet that My Future NC goal to increase the educational attainment of the residents of North Carolina. And this is one way to do that. So we're hopeful that the General Assembly will be able to help our students and our colleges.
And it's more really than just helping the students in the colleges, because these schools are cornerstones of the community. So when they come back and they're in good shape, the community follows too.
They absolutely are. And most of our colleges are either the largest employer or private employer or among the very largest. And for example, in Banner Elk, Lees McRae is the largest employer in Avery County. That's a huge impact on the campus, and on the students, but on the entire county and region.
When might we hear something from the General Assembly?
Well, the General Assembly is coming back this week, and we hope that they'll be able to provide some financial aid support for our students this week. And then they'll be back in November, and we are very hopeful that they'll be able to help provide support for our institutions and certainly all of higher education, public and private, during that time.
We'll be certainly watching. Any final thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners today?
Well, I think that as people think about what they can do, that it is important to think that there are ways to help and to think about the fact that we have students attending colleges and universities all across North Carolina who are from those counties and have been affected. And of course, students from all over North Carolina who are attending the colleges that were affected. So I think that giving everyone a little grace while they try to recover, just as President Czarda said, some people may need some extra time off. We have campuses that have been fortunate enough to serve as additional resources for those that needed first responders, volunteers, and others that could help. Other campuses that didn't have those resources available have had to step back for a little bit and wait to get those resources restored. But I think it's all beginning to come together. And I do think that it's going to take a very long time to get back to whatever that new normal is. But I do think it shows the resiliency of our colleges, our faculty, our students, and our state.
Yeah, all of our communities.
All of ours.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Williams, for spending some time with us, Dr. Czarda, as always. And once again, that website where you can help is ncicu.org. And you can keep up also there with what's going on with our colleges and universities and the support. And as information comes through about the General Assembly and what they decide, that will be available there as well. We're also going to keep you up to date. If you'll follow Greensboro College on social media, we'll be sharing updates from our sister schools in the western part of North Carolina. Thank you so much for joining us today. Be sure to subscribe to Greensboro College's Dialogues from the President's Corner wherever you watch or listen. Learn more about all the good things happening at the college by following us on social media. Our handles at Greensboro College and online at greensboro.edu.